Good morning, colleagues, and thank you for coming, especially those of you who are here bright and early and on time. Um, I really appreciate. I know for many of you, it takes some level of sacrifice and commitment to getting here and getting here on time. So you're welcome, and I really appreciate it. I consider it a privilege to have here. Good morning. I consider it a privilege to have this interaction with you, and I value your time. So thank you very much for coming. So last week, we started talking about reports and writing. Really, the whole purpose of this technical writing series is to build your capacity to communicate in writing. And I did mention that there are two major types of communication pathways or ways to communicate, and there's verbal communication and there is written communication, and both are critical to master as skills in public health practice. And so we looked a little bit about the different types of writing that align with the different sort of thinking. We looked at narrative, we looked at descriptive, we looked at analytical, we looked at evaluative, and we looked at reflective. And so what I hope that we can achieve today, hope we're recording, yes we are. What I hope we can achieve today is to start to apply last week's learning to the different sort of reports that we will need to write in public health practice, the different sort of reports we will need to write in public health practice. So I've tagged today's conversation, writing a technical report. I've tagged it writing a technical report. And we're going to be doing this for the most part of today. Now, I need to provide an explanation on my methodology for conducting these master classes. Many of you know that I enjoy using PowerPoint slides, and I can put a PowerPoint slide together. But I thought that rather than to put in a PowerPoint slide, which will indeed be PowerPoint, as in it will just be points, and I will be sharing a lot of things outside of the points because you can't put everything in, that it will be more beneficial for you if I just provide you with a document. And so the document would guide our conversation and our discussion. And then immediately after the class, I can send that document to everyone. And that can serve as a reminder for you. It can serve as something to jog your memory, something to refer back to. And my slides can remain my personal property while I share a lot more information can be shared in a document than ought to be shared in a slide. I know people pack slides with a lot of things, but that's not correct. The other thing to note is that just like I did for last week, I would try for every interaction to share the recording of our discussions, and also to share any other additional document that I think will be beneficial as you work towards building your capacity and your competence in this topic. Now, very clearly, I'm sure we know that I am in no way claiming to be the world's foremost expert in any of these topics. I just think that it's important to share in a non-threatening manner. There's no exam hanging over your head. There is no assessment hanging over your head. You can learn at your own pace and in a relaxed manner. Just a short interaction. Share some of my own experiences and my own learnings and competencies so that it doesn't take you as much time as it took me to learn some of these things. So let's dive deep into writing a technical report. Of course, before we start talking about how to write it, let's talk about what it is. So really, it's a written account. And the important thing about a report is that it is not an account that is written in any way, manner, anyhow, any kind, any way you just feel like writing. There is usually supposed to be a way, a skill, a method, a template, an outline for writing that account. And it refers to so many different sort of activities and situation. So it can be a development, a situation, an event, a proceeding, a transaction, a lot of things. So you see that you have a lot of different kinds of reports. But majorly, the way the report is written will tell you whether it is a narrative report or a technical report. Again, remember, to go back to our learning from last class, to realize that there is a narrative sort of way of thinking and writing where the writer wants to draw people into the story. It's basically storytelling. Wants to draw people into the story, wants to paint a picture in people's minds for them to see and feel as though they were part of the story. It's important for fiction writing. It's also important for using storytelling to pass across a public health message. But then there is technical writing, and most of what we will be required to do in our own public health professions and public health specialties is technical writing, technical report. So a technical report is a written account that follows principles of analytical thinking and writing. So it is technical because it is written for a specialized audience, or it's written by a specialized individual for a general audience. So it's either it is written by for a specialized audience or by a specialized individual for a general audience. So that's important to note. And you can and there are different kinds of technical reports. I'd like us just to draw you into a participation if you are not, if you're at a place where you can actually type into the chat box. Can you please do a free list, as many as you can drop on the platform, the different kinds of technical reports you have needed to write, or you think public health professionals will need to write. I have a list further down the page, but I will not scroll down yet. Let's get our input. Please put in the chat box the sort of reports, the sort of technical reports public health professionals are expected to write. Can we have a list, please? Just write it in the chat box. It's a free list. Just go ahead and write a free list into the chat box of the sort of different names given to those reports. What are the different names given to technical reports that you've had to write, you would need to write? Yeah, so I see training report, I see policy brief, I see a research report. Excited to get more feedback. And I'll probably do some clarification. And just to say that not all write-up, not all technical write-up is a report. Not all technical write-up is a report. Not all technical write-up is a report. You have technical write-ups that are not a report, because really what a report does is to share what has happened, and what it means for the organization. So a report means that a situation has occurred, a development has occurred, an activity has occurred, and somebody carefully curated what it was and what it means for the organization or for the audience, for the people reading it. So you need to know that not all technical write-up is a report. There are other sort of technical write-ups that are not reports, because those write-ups deal with not with things that have occurred or a development that you need to curate and give information about, but it may just be around an idea. It may be around a research idea. So for example, A research proposal is not a report. A research proposal is not a report. However, you can argue that a dissertation, the write-up of a completed research endeavor, can pass as a report. It is some form of a report, because at that time you are now telling us what you have done and what it means. When you're writing a proposal, it's a technical write-up, but you're not describing what has happened. You are giving us insight into what you intend to do. A policy brief is a technical write-up, but it is not necessarily a report. The reason for that is that a technical brief or a policy brief is explaining how a certain issue should be addressed, how a certain issue should be tackled, what are the things that are needed to be done to be able to achieve success in a certain issue, address a certain problem. So it is not a report of something that may have happened. So you have meeting reports. That is one of the commonest sort of reports that we encounter. You're asked to be the secretary of a particular meeting and write minutes of the meeting. Minutes of a meeting is a report. And that is, it can be as simple as that. It can be an activity report. I can ask you, for example, to write a report about today's masterclass, and that's a report. You could also do a workshop report. You could do a financial report. So that way, what we are expecting are the numbers and what monies were used for. You can do an evaluation report because you conducted the evaluation and you have findings that you would like to share. All right. Why do we need to write reports? Why do we need to write reports? One is to provide information for decision making. It's very important. If it is not documented in healthcare, in health development, we have a maxim. If you don't report it, you didn't do it. So the ability to write a report is so important. If you don't report it, you didn't do it. And there is hardly any organization that will provide you with funds to carry out an activity that will not ask for a report. If they do not ask for a report, something is wrong with them. Something is wrong, something is wrong, something is wrong. Because the report serves as their evidence that the activity happened. It serves as information for them to know whether the activity was worthwhile or not, to make a decision about how it will happen. Not even just the activity, but how that activity impacted. It is a justification for the monies that they have spent. It demonstrates accountability. And amazingly, it serves as a reference document for posterity. So I'm currently supporting an organization for a survey. And this is a survey 5 years after the baseline. And I was part of the team that supported the baseline of that survey. And so when I was called to come and do this 5 year after survey, the first thing I did was to pull out the report we wrote for the baseline 5 years before. It's the first thing. The first reference I made to was, okay, so how did that one happen? What did we learn from that? And how can that be put into to make this one better, to have some comparability with this one? And I mean, just having that report has made working on this particular project a lot easier, because I'm not developing things from scratch. I'm not developing training manuals. I'm not developing, it was all there. I'm just updating. It's so important that we learn the discipline of writing reports, even if nobody asks you. put it down. I remember my very first consultancy assignment was for Africa. They didn't ask me for a report, but I gave them, not Africa, no, Society for Family Health. They didn't really ask me for a report, but I gave them anyway. As far back as even when I didn't know how to write a report, I felt if you're asking me to do something, I should have some way of giving you feedback about how it went. And the reason I put that report together was I noticed some things that were not going well, and I thought that they could improve. So I thought the best way to do it is to organize a document and give it to them. All right. So what are some of the things that we must bear in mind for a technical report? What are some of the things that we must bear in mind for a technical report? First of all, every report is based on a set of objectives, very clear set of objectives. One of the things you should learn how to do, and hopefully at some point in our conversation, we would go over how to develop and how to understand the terms of reference. So the terms of reference is a technical document. It's not a report, but it's a technical document. It's not a report, but it's a technical document. I hope everybody can see me and hear me. Just put in the chat box. Don't need to open your mic. Just put in the chat box that you can see me and hear me. I hope I'm not having any challenges with communicating. Oh, great. All right. Thank you. All right, cool. Thank you. All right. So it is sound, it is clear, and it is focused on objectives. Now, usually, if it is an assignment, a consultancy, something you were asked to come and do, or even if it is a minute of, even if it's a minute of a meeting, interestingly, you would need to articulate what is the objective of this assignment, number one, and what is the objective of this report. So there are two questions you must ask yourself. What was the objective of this assignment? And what is the objective of this report? For you to understand the objectives of the assignment, more often than not, it is a good idea to have been given, in one way or the other, a terms of reference. A terms of reference is a document that specifically invites you to carry out an activity, telling you what skills and competencies you will need to employ to be able to execute. And on top of that, what is expected of you, including the objectives of the task that has been given to you. So that helps. It's a good place to go glean your objectives for your report from, because your report must speak to the objectives of the activity, of the development of the situation that you are involved in, for which you are writing a report. It's just very simple. It's just very simple like that. So it's very important that you are sure that you articulate. And even if it is not given, just ask the people that have engaged you to have, even if it's a verbal conversation, or send you an email of what their expectation from the activity. So for example, if it is a training, the objective of the training, you have to find out, maybe to build the capacity of lower cadre of healthcare workers to be able to take on the roles and responsibilities of higher level of healthcare workers in what we typically will call task shifting. Task shifting. So to build their competence in being able to carry out tasks that you will normally leave to a higher level of healthcare workers. That may be the objective of the training. And if you write a report about how the sky is blue and how the grass is green, and that report does not address activities that were carried out to meet that objective, you are playing. You are just not serious. Then the second question you ask yourself, what's the objective of this report? Who is the beneficiary? Who is reading this report? So usually the owner of the report dictates the objective of the report. Is the report to senior management? If the report is to senior management, it says the objective will be to provide senior management with a concise understanding of what happened, how it happened, and what the implications are for the organization. Is it a report for the end user? That is the beneficiaries. Will this report be read by the healthcare workers whom you trained? And you will tweak it a little bit and say, okay, what I want to do is to show them the methods, the process by which the training happened, the reason, the rationale for the training, and what they can do to further improve themselves. That may be the focus of that report. So you must be knowledgeable about what it is. A very important thing for reports and any technical write-up is that it must be clear, it must have a logical flow, it must be seamless, and it must be reader-friendly. I have gone to look at the first report I wrote for SFH. In fact, sometimes I use it to train. Maybe I'll bring it up one of these days. And that report is painful on the eyes. As I'm reading, I looked at it yesterday and I was like, wow, you've come a long way, praise God, because I don't know how they read that thing. I have my lines all jumbled up, different font types and sizes. I have paragraphs of uneven width and length. Is not justified. There's no table of content. There's no logical flow. I start with the findings. I go to the objective. It was just terrible. I mean, a very heartfelt attempt, but it was terrible. I don't write like that anymore. It must be clear, there must be a logical flow, and it must be reader friendly. Somebody must look at it and want to read it. So you clearly, so look at this document that is in front of you, just as a quick example. And you see that there is use of bold, there is use of different sort of pointers, there are bullet points. It is pretty easy to follow. It's not one long winding prose that you are going to have to be reading like a novel. Very importantly, that a technical report should have a sound structure. You know how we are taught for any exam you write, if they taught you how to answer exam questions, they would have told you that you always, especially if it's a short answer, is an essay, anything that requires you writing in prose, that you always must have an outline. You must have an outline. And then you just go back, make sure your outline is logical, it flows, and you go back and follow your outline and produce that. You will get better marks, more marks that way. It's the same with a technical report and any form of technical writing. There must be so many organizations will give you, because consultants and people have shown them shaggy, they will give you a template and tell you subheadings, respond to this. This is what we want. Don't go off on a tangent. This is what we want. They will give you a subheading. Please give me a minute. My chief resident is calling me and I think there's maybe an issue. Let me mute my mic. Okay, sorry. I have some people apparently waiting for me in seminar room in my department. They didn't realize that I've made today 100% virtual because I'm not physically present. Okay, so it must have sound structure, clear, logical flow. Make sure you understand what the subject matter is. Make sure that if there's a reporting outline given to you, it's written in line with that reporting outline. Even if it's written by multiple people, it should read as one report. We shouldn't see the fact that Lagbaja wrote A and Bumi wrote B and Dayo wrote C. No. It should read as though one person wrote it. It shouldn't be too long. This is not a war of how many pages you can produce. It should be short enough to be read. If somebody picks your report and it is 125 pages report of a training activity, they will want to read it. Nobody has that time. It should be concise, but it should cover the subject matter. It should be factual and technically correct. It is good to always make comparisons from previous reports. So if it's a repeated activity and you conducted this particular one, but other similar activities have been done in the past, it is a good idea for you to be able to show your capacity by looking at the pros and the cons, comparing with other events, and it needs to be complete. All right, let's go quickly to the parts of a technical report. So I have the preliminary parts and the main content. What I'd like us to do, the preliminary parts are things like title page, acknowledgement, abstract, table of content, abbreviations and acronyms, list of tables and figures if it's necessary. So all those are preliminary parts. What I'd like us to do is put in the chat box, if you're following us and you're able to type, please put in the chat box the main body of a report, how it is usually organized. And it may vary depending on what kind of report. Some things may be useful for this sort of report or not useful for that other sort of report. But I'd really like to see your thoughts about the content of a report, the main body of a report, the main body of a report. What are the components, parts? Let's dissect the component parts of the main body of a report. Please share your thoughts. What are the component parts of the main body of a report? Go ahead, please. Thank you, Boniface, for your speech. So please add, keep going. The main components of a report. The main components of a report. All right, happy to get more people. I'm sure you're typing. All right, I'm seeing the submissions as well. I'm smiling. Very brilliant responses coming in. And thank you for your contribution. So let's go into it. I'll come back and talk about an abstract, but let's go into the main body of the report. So main body of a report, I mean, the focus for this is more on either an activity report or a consultancy report. It's less on a research report. I know many of you are familiar with the content of a research report, that we will have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, as the case may be, where you have introduction, and then you have literature review, you have materials and methods, you have results or findings, then you have your discussion, you have your recommendation and all of that. Nice. But we will focus more on a technical report for the health industry, the health development, for the development world. So if you are asked to come and conduct a training and they ask you, they're paying you money to come and carry out a training, or they're paying you money to go do a consultancy assignment, facilitate a meeting, and you're asked to do a report on it, what should it be? It's usually more abridged than the report of a research endeavor that is long. And even if you are asked to come and do a research, the report of the activities of the research, not necessarily the findings of the research. I don't know if you understand the difference. For example, you may be called in as a consultant to do a baseline survey. There are two kind of things that you can produce. You can produce a findings report that has to do with how you went, what it was that you were supposed to do, how you did it, and what you found, and what the implications are. And it's full of the information of the findings of the study and all of that. It can also be a technical report of the process. It's called a process report. So the process report is not interested in the results of the study. It is more interested in how you carried out the study. I hope I'm not confusing you. Anyway, major aspects of a report. A report always has an introduction. Some people call it background and leave it at that. Some people call it introduction. But really, it is where you set the scene. You set the scene, you give some sort of information that makes us understand the issues, the concepts, the ideas, and the thoughts behind that work that was done. So, for example, or that meeting that was held. So if you're having to write an activity report, let's say the activity is training, which is one of the commonest things we'll be engaged in. It's a training report. The background of your training report is we'll be talking about what training is this? You understand? So if it is capacity building for tax shifting, what is that? What training is that? Who are the people that are involved in the training? Either people who brought the training, who put the training together, or the people who are benefiting from the training. Has any previous training like this happened? Is this the first of this kind? Is it part of the series of the training? So what is the rationale? What is the problem that this training is expected to solve? What is the rationale for the training? What is the problem that this training is expected to solve? Why is the training needed? So all of these answers to questions give you a background. And you would need to employ some bit of narrative writing and a lot of descriptive writing in this aspect of the. Very often in the development world, unlike in research where objectives, at least in public health research, objectives are a part of the introduction. In development world, objectives are a vital subheading on their own. And usually we don't say aim and objectives in the development world, we just say objectives. So it tells you the purpose, one, of the activity, two, of the report. What are the specific issues that somebody reading will expect to be covered? Why is that important? Here you will need descriptive thinking and a lot of analytical thinking, but more heavy on analytical and just still a bit of descriptive as well. Methodology. This is where you tell us how you did. How? It answers the question how. So we usually use the word approach and methodology. They are synonyms, but there is a difference. Approach and methodology. Approach is what is the philosophy behind how the activity or how the event or how was carried out. What's the philosophy? So let me give you an example. A training event. The approach, there are different approaches to a training. You can have a non-residential based on where are the people staying. So those of you in development, you know what I'm talking about. Is it a residential or a non-residential training? So where people stay to have the training is an approach, because the idea is that for a residential training, you have an early start, you have a late close. Because you're accommodating people, you can draw out a lot of their time. Then there is a non-residential approach. There is a didactic approach to training, and there's a participatory approach to training. And what that means is that so an approach is any philosophy that influences all the methods that the training will employ. For example, if it's a didactic approach, you are gathering people and you're just talking to them. You're just talking to them. Slide after slide, presenter after presenter, present like they do at update courses and all of that, presenter after presenter after presenter, and at the point you are tired. But a participatory approach will mean that there will be group work, there will be exercises, people will get involved, people will talk, the facilitator is not the only person talking, other people have a say. That is approach. The methodology now breaks down questions about among whom. So you have to talk about the study participants. You have to talk about where the study is, the research, your participants, the training participants or whatever, where it is happening, how long it is happening for, what is the timetable like, who are the people, the facilitators coming to, what are, so the nitty-gritty, I should be able to take your methodology and reproduce it and get something similar to what you're barring all the flexibilities and changes of human nature and all of that. So you really need to be well thought out and very well structured. Then there is the findings or the activities. So some people put activities as a separate section in a report, usually for development, or people talk about the findings. Or some people do activities and then still come and do findings. So what is activities? It's just an explanation of the things that you did. And usually you don't go into prose, you bullet it and say, okay, what were the activities that were carried out? Community entry. And you give short notes on how that was done. And it has to be very clear in an orderly and logical manner. Stakeholder engagement. You talk about how the stakeholders were engaged and who the stakeholders were and how long that activity took. Remember, always be analytical in your thinking. Be less narrative and more analytical. So, for example, you had the stakeholder engagement. Don't go about saying the stakeholder engagement started at 9 a.m. The people from the community came. The woman leader said this. The man leader. No. Rather, you were thinking like, how many people were at that stakeholders meeting? How many people? How many community leaders? How many were male? How many were female? What were the key issues raised? So that's analytical thinking, as opposed to narrative and descriptive thinking. Very important. All right. In your findings, you should talk about, so you see your activities are to be carried out to fulfill objectives. So for each objective of that work that you did, there will be a set of activities, major activities and sub-activities that will speak to that objective. What are your activities? Very important. And your activities must speak to your objective. So you take it objective by objective. Now, there are some activities that are cross-cutting that speak to multiple objectives, and you should state so that you don't have to keep repeating the same activities. For example, an activity that is cross-cutting is like a preparatory meeting. So if before the training, you had a preparatory meeting where you sat down and you were like, everything you need for the training, is it available and all of that, and you're asking yourself those questions. You are not interested at that time. You're not interested in say, okay, before the stakeholder engagement preparatory meeting, and then you describe it. Then before the community entry preparatory meeting, you describe it. Before the workshop preparatory meeting. No, you can have one heading, preparatory meeting, and then in that subheading of preparatory meeting, you state all the different activities or objectives that the preparatory meeting or meetings were supposed to help you achieve. Now, I want to take some time to talk about, we have 5 minutes to go. Take some time to talk about emerging, and please put your questions in the chat box, because I think I can take 2 or 3 minutes to answer questions. Kindly please put your questions in the chat box. Emerging issues. Now, this is where reflective thinking is very important. Emerging issues. Emerging issues talk about you have thought deeply about observations you made, about issues that are, an issue may be positive or negative. Issues are not only challenges, issues are positive occurrences. Things that came up, issues that came up, they might be strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, or threats. Remember, if you have a SWOT analysis mindset, that came up that have the potential for positively or negatively influencing that work, that project, or the organization that is championing it. And it is very important because it reflects your ability to evaluate and your ability to reflect. So, for example, and it's actually a skill to be able to come up with emerging issues. You must be on the lookout for it. If you're not looking out for it, you will miss it entirely. You will completely miss it entirely. For example, if in analyzing the participants list for a training, you discover that there are no females, very few females. You may have been training and not really realize, and maybe when you analyze or you are realized while you were training, very few female health workers are involved in this training. You start to ask yourself questions. Is that there are no female health workers, but they are not involved in the training. What's going on? It's an emerging issue. Is it that there's a gendered selection of participants for this training? What are the reasons? How will that negatively impact, because I see it as a negative thing, impact the organization or the project? If, for example, there are more female, of course, there are more female nurses than male nurses, and you're doing a training for nurses, and it's only the males that come, mostly the males that come, mainly because the male nurses are the leaders, are the bosses, are the heads, are the directors, so they will be bringing themselves. But the people who will implement are not there. You have an emerging issue on your hand, and you must be able to come up with a recommendation that is directed at a person or an individual who is carrying out that recommendation. Recommendation must be based on issues that you have observed, and recommendations must be actionable. Now, I want to go to spend 1 or 2 minutes on the executive summary, and I think that we will take a session on executive summary or abstract. So in research, we call it an abstract. In a report, we call it a summary. Some people call it an executive summary. And the reason they call it an executive summary is that it is actually meant for the top leadership who do not have the time, the energy, or the patience to read your long report. So it is usually a page and a half. Hardly will you have an executive summary running into 2 pages. The purpose is to give the leaders the details they must know. And it covers your entire report, including lessons learned, recommendations, next steps, including the activities, the methodology, the outcome. Is very important that you learn the art and the act of writing an executive summary. And of course, it's usually the last thing you write, but usually the first few pages, because they just want to go there, read it. Okay, I understand. And if they need more information, they will go there. All right. So we've looked at a technical report, and we've looked at parts of a technical report, and along the way, we looked at how a technical report should be written. If we have questions, let's just put them in the chat box. Minutes and a report. Actually, there's a document I will share when I share the folder for this particular engagement that talks about how to write a minute of a meeting. Minutes of a meeting is a form of report. It's just a specific form of report that looks at the proceedings of the meeting and the key agreements. A lot of people write minutes of meeting as a narrative report, where they will tell you what time it started, who came in, who said what, who was angry, who quarreled, how the quarrel was settled, Well, it's possible to write a minutes of a meeting, which is actually a report, as a technical document. And if you look at the document that I will attach it, I'll put into the folder for our use, you will see the difference. And actually some information on how to write a minutes of meeting. All right. Somebody's asking for methodology. Methodology talks about the different ways, the way that that activity is carried out. So the introduction section of a report is actually the best. Sometimes you will be given specific guidelines, introduction, 500 words, introduction, 1,000 words, character self sometimes. But if you're not given, usually a maximum of 2 pages, 2 typed pages with maybe 1.5 or single lines. It should be a maximum of, nobody wants to, in fact, it's about a page is beautiful. A page, a few lines above a page. Nobody wants to be reading your introduction forever. They want to get past the introduction and get straight into the meat of your work. All right. Throw more light on, I think I need to expand this so that I can read it. All right, beautiful. Let's see if I'm missing. I can take 1 or 2, then we will have to shut this down. Yeah, so I'll be sharing. Yeah, so next steps, action points. These are also very important parts of a report. Maybe in another time, we'll take them in more detail. All right. So a policy brief, Akuchi, is not narrative writing. A policy brief is a technical document, but it is not a report. But it's a very, 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 in fact, it's actually a very high level technical document, because a policy document articulates the vision, the direction, and the scope of activities for a particular leadership for their organization or for their people. So, for example, the malaria policy articulates what the federal government of Nigeria believes is the way malaria should be prevented, diagnosed, and managed. And everybody who is dealing with malaria in the country will need to align with this. So if our policy is that treatment is by artemisinin-based combination therapy, ACTs, then you are using chloroquine, or you are going against the policy. So if a policy is not articulated, it will not be easy for it to be followed. So it's a very highly technical document, but it's not a report. Not a report. All right. Except there's a question burning on everybody's mind. Definitely everybody who attended this will get the folder. We get a link to the folder that has this particular that I used, and it will also have a few other reference documents as well as the video recording for today's class. Thank you so much for everyone who was able to join. I want to apologize to my colleagues in community medicine who thought I would be at the seminar room in person. I'm really sorry. I was not able to do that. So I planned that today will be 100% virtual. But who knows? The next time I'm available, we will be in the seminar room. Okay. Thank you very much. I would let us know definitely the next time we'll have. I'm not sure if next week Wednesday will work, but the next time we'll have, I'll let us know so that if we're available, we can jump in. I'm happy. I'm glad for your time. Thank you for allowing me to take a few more minutes outside of the 45 minutes we've agreed. Thank you very much, everyone. Cheers. Have a very wonderful day.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof.
Yeah, thank you too.
Thank you, Prof.